Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Carlos Emanuel Medio Flores, and I am going to talk about the Roman laws, but in the second section. We already know and we already saw how was the first period in this Roman laws civilization. We are not focusing only in the formal sources of the law, such as the ones in the regal period, that was in the monarchy, in which there were 7 kings, in the one that is also in the republic with the Senate and with the replacements of the magistrates of the kings, but also in the empire. We need to know the evolution of this Roman Empire and how it was applied not only in this great civilization, but how it influenced a lot of Western cultures, such as the one that was applied in the Napoleonic Code. We're going to see that in a moment. In these periods of the Roman laws, we're going to divide these periods in the laws, not in the entire civilization. Because in the civilization, there were only 3 major periods. But in the Roman laws, they were the archaic, the Hellenistic, the classic, and the bureaucratic, in which all this evolution was during the monarchy, the part during the Second Punic Wars against Hannibal Barca, the classic, and in this period it was applied in the bureaucratic, all the codification of Justinian, that was the peak of all the Roman laws. We're going to see some things that are applied today, but its origin was created in the ancient Rome civilization. First, we need to know in the Status Civitatis. First, we need to know how it was defined the people from Rome. Not all the people in the Roman civilization was or were having the same rights as the other ones, because they didn't have the same condition, because not all the people had citizenships, such as nowadays, in which some people are illegal immigrants or people that are criminals. It was the same in this. The status civitatis is defined in which the people it was a citizen of Rome or not. The libertatis is the one in which they define in which they were slaves, that they were not legal persons, or they were free. The one that is the status familiae, in which they were managing the pater families and the filius families management of all their own patrimony, in which they had all the rights over the people they were representing. And also the ones that were the alieni juris and the siu juris. The siu juris were the people that were without an authority over them, and the alieni juris were the people that had authorities over them. That's how we need to define this, and we're going to pass to explain each of them. First, we need to know the causes of slavery. In the ancient Roman civilization, it was not in the slavery like the one that is applied today. In Rome, we need to know that one of the causes of slavery was the census, in which the people needed a census in all the period of the government, in which the monarchy or the republic or the empire were counting how many people were in the Roman territory. If a person didn't get inscribed in this census, they were captive in slavery. Each census was applied 5 years to 5 years after them. The second one was the war. The people that were conquered by Rome were turning slaves. The second one was the self-sale, in which a person that had necessity wanted to have all this food for their master and had this own sale, in which, with the consent of the person that was going to become a slave, he was sold. The piracy, in which the people that were captured by the pirates, after he was set free in the seas, he was free. In the case of Rome, it was a cause of slavery. The ingratitude. This was applied when a former slave was having bad attitude or bad treaty for the former owner, and that caused again the ingratitude and the slavery. The birth. The birth is very interesting because it only follows when the mom of the baby or the son or the daughter was a slave. They are always going to continue the condition of the mother due to the cultural ideas they had. The war, obviously, and the crimes that were very punished, like for example the infamy, in which they were applying a great luxury on this. We're going to focus on the next slide. We're going to focus now in the sources and the limitations of a slave. The slave couldn't have the marriage. They had another treaties or unions of marital character, but the marriage was not allowed. It was only allowed for citizens. And also, they didn't have an own patrimony. Why? Because this patrimony was only for the filius and pater families in the ancient Rome civilization. And all the processes against them were nullified due to the condition in which they were only a legal object and not a person. After that, we're going to focus on the next slide, in which we're going to see the Capatis Diminutio, in which this was applied by the praetor, that was the judge in the ancient Rome civilization, as a punishment. There were 3 types of Capatis Diminutio, that was like a diminution of the capacity. The maximum is when a crime was very hard, they were the citizens applied and transformed into slaves. Also, the medium was the one in which they had the fall and didn't have anymore the citizenship and the family status of the pater families. They lost both of them, but they continued to have the freedom. And the minimum, it was the one in which they conserved their citizenship, but they have a punishment in the legal attitude they were applying. And the status civitatis. In this status, we need to know the people that were in Rome. They were people that were free, but they didn't have all the rights the same as the normal people. First, the citizens were the ones that had all the treaties and the good things, because they were applied the law and they were of the original part of Rome. They were the only ones capable of having a marriage. The second one were the peregrinis, people that had treaties with Rome but were not citizens and could have a living in that region. The lastly, the same as peregrini but with more rights. The genus, the people that were always free. They didn't were slaves at any point of their life. And the freed persons, the people that were slaves and now are free. After that, we're going to focus on the parentesque. We need to know that the parentesque is obviously in the status familiae. We already saw the status civitatis and libertatis, and the parentesque. There were 2. The cognatio is the one that is applied by blood. It was only from a straight line, a grandfather, a father, and the sons, not for the parts of the cousins, for example. And the agnatio, in which it was only through marriage, in which the woman was going to transform into the authority in the pater family's commitment. And these were the authorities over the linea juris. The linea juris was a person, or were persons that were having all the situation in which they had 3 authorities over them, and they didn't have the right to have their patrimony. The only people that had the right to have own patrimony were the pater and the filius families. The filius families were the sons of the pater families. Also, the pater families were the ones that were in the authority in the linea juris, that were the chief of the house of the family, the magnus. This was applied of the authority over a woman that was in a marriage, applied by the husband. The husband was having authority over the woman in which they had this marriage, and the mancipium, authority of a free man over another free man. In resume, we already saw how they were these things applied in the ancient Roman civilization. Thanks to God. God bless you. Thank you.